Welcome back to MYSRJ. It's been 3 weeks since I updated you on what I'm planning to do with my gallery, how it's going. But the big news to reveal, as you can see on screen, the Premier League has come to Sorare. Finally, it is there. If you've been watching the journey, we expected this. We transitioned our gallery to benefit off a change like this. And if you watched the live streams I was on with Harry and Quinny, you would have seen as we got closer to the day, I actually predicted the 30th of January would be the release date of the Premier League. So yeah, we'll talk everything about the Premier League in this episode, but I'll leave it towards the end. Because what I want to talk about now is a concept I can bring back from all the way back in November and explain why I was using these strategies to try and help me grow, to deal with difficult situations on Sorare, and it's very relevant to today. If you've been on Twitter recently, if you've been on Sorare Twitter at least, there was a little bit of uproar about Pavel Trader. He had upped his profit margin to 40%, so he wanted 40% on every trade he does. Now, I don't think those numbers are real. It's just to stop people wasting Pavel's time. I do a lot of trades with Pavel. But I think these trades with people like Pavel and very similar galleries that do the same, they can be so beneficial to players. It's a concept that I like to name losing now, but winning later. If we can trade back all the way to November, I can talk about this exactly as it happened to me. Tomio Nadal here was my goalkeeper, my only rare goalkeeper. He was very expensive, about £1,000 player, and unfortunately, he got dropped for one of the games. So essentially, we have no idea what's gone on with him. He's sitting on the bench and the reserve keeper has come in and he's kept a clean sheet. It's one of the worst scenarios you can be in. This is why I always try and keep a reserve goalkeeper as part of my gallery. So I have, the starting goalkeeper and the backup, so I can't be in too bad of a situation. But I just didn't have the budget for it at the time. So I was left in a very bad situation with no starting goalkeeper and no idea what's happening next. I immediately tried to trade these cards out to people that will accept trades and maybe hope they didn't understand that the player was dropped. At the end of the day, it is your responsibility to do your own due diligence on cards you get. So if someone sends you a bad trade, you've got to reject it. Unfortunately for me, but good for them, they all knew that he had been dropped in the last game. Fair play to them. So I had to pay up. Essentially, I had to get rid of cards I really liked. Kyogo Furuhashi was in bad form, but I know how good he is. I'm a Celtic fan at the end of the day. I had to get rid of him. Thibaut Courtois, Benzema, coming up to the World Cup. These cards were expected to do really well, and I had to get rid of them. Yes, they're only limited, but obviously being the limited whale, I had to make a tough decision to get rid of them. I ended up playing away £3,400 of cards to win back a card worth £2,500. So let's talk about that card, because that card was Unai Simon in rare, and it wasn't luck based, right? I put a lot of research into who I wanted. I went through hours of these people's galleries just looking at trash and injured trash. Finally, I came up with a man that could work. Unai Simon is a goalkeeper, he's a guaranteed starter, and he was a fantastic scorer that wasn't scoring too fantastically at the time of getting him. In addition to that, he was an expected World Cup starter, pretty much nailed on to be a World Cup starter. So it opens up all these doors to me where I get a starting goalkeeper again. I get someone for the up-and-coming hype train, the World Cup hype train, and just, someone safe, it's not a risk. He's in Champion Europe, where else is he going to go? And I had to pay 135% premium because my keeper was injured. But I wasn't looking... The key with these people is they look at the averages of their scores, or they look at the averages or the floor price. They usually take whichever one favours them. So in this scenario, the average was much higher. They all knew he wasn't playing, and they were like, I'm going to have to say at the floor price and even cut a little bit off that. And I was like, that is a bit harsh. But I reckon in the long term, it will still play out for me. So what happened in this scenario is Nadal never got his place back. He's still a reserve keeper to this day. You've got to use probability. In this scenario, Nadal had been dropped out of nowhere, right? He wasn't putting in stellar performances. He was just playing like a run-of-the-mill goalkeeper. This other goalkeeper got his first shot and kept a clean sheet. We have no idea what's happening next game week, but who would you pick in this scenario? The guy that's just came up and done better than the starting goalkeeper, or stick with the old guy that was putting up run-of-the-mill performances? To me, it was an 80% chance that the second goalkeeper would stay on, and that proved to be true. You have to take your chances. In addition to this, we had Daley Blind. Daley Blind was in an awful run of form for Ajax, and we weren't sure if he was going to play for Netherlands. Someone that I could trade off. Essentially, what happened in the end is that if we fast forward to today, I've actually managed to make a profit off this trade. So we've gone from down £800 to up £200 in the space of 2 months. Now, this is outdated by about 6 weeks, it's outdated by about 3 weeks, just because this is when I prepared the data. And yeah, I've been quite busy with the content and work and everything else. So sorry I didn't get it out sooner. But, you know, if you make acceptable predictions, these guys simply look at the numbers now. If you can make forward estimations that are accurate and have good probabilities on them, you can find yourself in a much better position. Because what happened is the World Cup hype hit and everyone wanted Unai Simon. Now I have two choices, sell into the hype or play the hype. I love the World Cup, so I stuck and played the hype. I didn't do too great with it, but it wasn't really my strategy. I was trying to have a little bit more fun and hopefully win some stuff. And I did end up winning some stuff in the World Cup, so it wasn't the worst ever. So if I can overturn a 35% downturn in one of these trades, you can overturn a 40% trade with Pavel. But like I'm saying, this isn't luck. If you go and trade 4 good players for 1 better player, you're never going to be able to make up that 40%. You'll just keep grinding away capital. And, you know, this is particularly relevant to me today because I was in a similar situation. And let me tell you who it was. Now, if you've been watching the short series, and I highly suggest you do, players like Milan Skriniar have actually come up quite consistently. Milan Skriniar has his contract running up at the end of this season, which means he's going to go on a free transfer, and even better, he's linked with better clubs than he's at now. He's linked to PSG very strongly. He's pretty much nailed on to go to PSG from Inter Milan. So he's not happy at the club, and I thought this is a perfect player to make a potential transfer benefit on, right? If he had gone in this January window to PSG, he scores better, his prices go up, and I was like, I don't think this is priced in the market. So I managed to pick him up for £350, and as time went on, you know, as the hype builds in a transfer market, you can see this is the 12th of January, he peaked at about £500. There was this one that sold for about 661, but I'm a bit dubious of it. It could have been a transfer between friends, it could have been anything. I'm essentially ignoring this value as an anomaly. But looking at the rest of the data, you can see he's up £150 and none of his scores have changed. What a key event happened for me was that he got red carded with a 1 point. Now I will say this was a twofold transaction because I was trying to get rid of him before that game so badly because I had already gained £150 on the transaction. We were halfway through the January transfer window and it didn't look like he was making any further advancements to actually getting to PSG. The thoughts had actually gone cold, and I had read an article in Italy that he was actually making the decision himself after the Coppa Italia, and that was about another 2 weeks down the line. So in this scenario, I could make a guaranteed profit, but I knew if I was to undercut the market, no one would be there to buy it. Because you see, the problem with these rare cards is that they're not very liquid because there's not very many of them. There's no new auctions coming up. Now, that's a good and a bad thing. The good problem is that people aren't going to constantly undercut you and drive your price down. But the bad news is buyers coming into the market don't have previous data where they can build confidence and say, well, if someone else bought it for that price, I'll buy it for that price. So in this scenario, I could have chopped and chopped and chopped and chopped and chopped until we got to a selling price of maybe £400, still bank £50 profit, but risk the fact he goes to PSG after the Coppa Italia and just miss the massive upside. Essentially, I wanted to lock in the upside now with no further risk. And I just want to say one quick metric I always use to measure these types of, is he overvalued, undervalued? The limited market. If the limited to rare prices are not at 10%, which one's higher? Why are they higher? Which one should move? And in this scenario, I think the Skriniar was actually just under. He was about this price, so he's about 45 times that's 450, and I thought 450 was a fair price, whereas his last sale was in the like 500 to 525 pound range. So after the longest explanation ever, what I'm trying to say here is that I could get a transfer value, an average sold on Skriniar of about £530, or I could try and sell him for ETH and get anywhere in the 400 to 500 pound region. But if you risk cutting down the price, you lose this option because the floor price will go down, and all of these, Pavel traders of the world will look at the averages and say, no, you're now lower. So I managed to cut a deal with Pavel. On the day, the ETH floor prices were 563 for me and 555 for him. So I couldn't understand why he would only take £13 on the trade, but I think he was looking at the averages where mine was 615 and his was 557. Now what I will say is 615 divided by 557 is still only a 10% premium, so I'm not sure why he accepted it anyway because it's not normally in his vicinity. Maybe he's in a good mood, maybe he likes me. Who knows? But that doesn't really matter. What I'm trying to point out here is I managed to do a deal with Pavel where I got a load of cards I did want for a load of cards I didn't want for the sake of like £10, effectively an even trade. And I can show you the exact trade here. You're looking at it now and you might think, well, you've lost, an extra £80 on the current trade because some have gone up in price, some have gone down in price. Firstly, it's not actually that accurate because Schlanger is much lower average than his actual floor. But the key point is that I'm not buying Schlanger for this week. I'm buying him for when Austria returns, which is either next weekend or the weekend after, and then his price will start to go up. So this is my thing where I'm losing now. I'm losing this week. I might be losing next week. But as soon as he's back, people will realise what an undervalued goalkeeper he is for the rare division, and the thresholds are back. People are too short-term minded sometimes. So if you can zoom out, even just 2 weeks, you can make, more favourable trades on your side. So you might be thinking at home, cool, you've made another good transfer with Pavel, you got lucky, he was in a good mood, he wanted less percentage than he normally does. No, I didn't. I did not get lucky in the slightest. It was hard work. I grinded so many offers to so many different people over so many different weeks and days. This wasn't one trade where I finally managed to get someone Pavel wanted. We went back and forth on a list of different names, and I used different people that offer the same services as Pavel. I just use him as like a base that everyone understands. But, I'm literally still scrolling. I reckon I have 50 plus offers just on Skriniar plus someone, or, Skriniar plus ETH for this guy. There's so many different ways I tried to consider trading this card away because I didn't think he was the right value on the market. And this all comes from understanding the market. I'm still going with different people on the line. But anyway, the point I'm trying to drill home here is that you need to try and understand the market. If you can make probability guesses on where the cards will move next, you can take advantage, especially of these traders, kind of regardless of what percentage they use. The tighter the spread, obviously, the better it is for you, and the worse it is for them. That's obviously just common sense. But these trades can be so important to you, especially when you're in a sticky situation. But it's not one trade. You have to try. You have to keep trying. Eventually something will get through where it's in your favor. And I've done the same again this week with a different set of players. Luka Jovic wasn't doing anything for me. I managed to pick up a Kingsley Coman. So how did I get a Kingsley Coman? He wasn't playing, he was on the bench. But I saw news that Bayern are testing this formation where Coman's a lock starter. I checked Play Sharper and he's expected 80%. Essentially, he's nailed down the right wing spot for the short time period, but his price hasn't caught up with that. There's a gap on the market, but who has one? Pavel. So I go out, I make the trade, I pay a little bit of a premium, and a week later, the floor prices of what I traded away are 595, and the floor price of Kingsley Coman, I'm not saying I can guarantee to sell him at that price, but I will say mine's the lowest on auction right now, on offer right now, is 664. Lose now, win later. I hope you understand it. I know I rambled on, but it's such an important point that people don't really talk about is you can trade. Use your football knowledge, use your market knowledge, and use their lack of it to make a trade. Now we can get back to how the gallery is transitioning, and you might be looking and saying, oh, Gini Wijnaldum, what do you know about him? And I've got to bring it back to the old point. I made a trade. Now, it'll look like I've got awful value on this trade because of the fact Gini Wijnaldum's a super rare. That's a liquid. There's not many of them, so he's very hard to get and also very hard to value. But I was valuing him at about £500, so call that 665 over 733. It's your typical trade, but I'm still trying to do the same thing of losing now and potentially winning later because Gini Wijnaldum's expected back in the squad this week. It wasn't that well known. Obviously, I follow Roma quite closely, so I managed to find that out. I've seen him in training a lot. But I am slightly concerned, and you will see him on sale. It's not a guaranteed sale. I'm just not sure how he'll react, and it is because of PSU fans. When I told him that I had purchased a Gini Wijnaldum, he called him one of the worst players on the game, and I was like, that's not very nice, just moved up to super rare. Why are you saying that? And then I saw exactly why he said it. It wasn't really something I had looked at too in depth, which may sound a bit stupid, but it was just so far back in history. I was just kind of thinking about the here and now, to be honest. And he's looking at his PSG scores and saying he was in a more attacking, more dominant team in the league, and he could barely put up an 80. In fact, he didn't. He put up his best score of a 75 with an assist. Averaged, even if we just take the starting games here, averaged 43 points maybe. And it just doesn't look too good. A couple of points to note are that obviously he wasn't really nailed in at PSG. All of the decisive action goes to the front three typically. Even if we look at Wijnaldum's scores at Liverpool, where he had more of an important role, they're not that particularly good. So I can completely see where PSG is coming from. But this is a completely new club, one where we have a much more important role. And to be honest, I'm just kind of hoping he does well because it fits my stack perfectly. It gets me into the super rare division at a cheap price. I'm picking up someone that's injured. By the time he's fit, I'm sure the hype will go up. Even if he's not, even before he's put a score up on the board, I'd expect his price to be close to double. Whether that can mean liquidity of a super rare or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But it's not my guaranteed one. I wouldn't tell any of you to go out and get a genuine Wijnaldum. He works for my gallery if he works, but it's a big risk, and we'll see how he does. Oyarzabal. I will say, if you've been watching the shorts and the reward openings, I think I'm a dyslexic because I cannot read names for anything. I've seen people commenting like, you've butchered this name, you've butchered that name. But yeah, we'll go with Oyarzabal, which just isn't it. I've picked up him for £70 for the cap mode. I might sell him because I'm actually using him in 220, but we can go more into my strategy on the cap mode soon. Jan Sommer links up perfectly with Kimmich and Upamecano, who are two players that are just SO5 royalty, really. These are for the giveaways. If you've seen them, shout out to you. There's 900 retweets on it, so you can get involved if you want, but you will have a 1 in 900 chance. Gorka was a reward. Watch the reward shorts if you really are involved. Coman I spoke about, he's just looking like he's now down the right wing spot for a little bit. At an attacking team like Bayern, if they find their form, this is going to be such a good buy. Ginter was a mistake because I was trying to buy players for the Bundesliga 270. If you know the Bundesliga 270, it's essentially only Bundesliga players, 270 points cap, but you can use common cards. The rewards aren't that great. They're for like introductory, low budgets. Me coming in with Kimmich and Upamecano was just a big waste of resources. So don't do that. If you haven't worked out already, I'm moving up to the rare or rare pro divisions. Limited was great when I was a limited whale, but the problem I had is I've probably dragged it out a little too long because it was easy, because I was consistently winning. With the limited whale thing, it was fantastic at the start because there was no competition and they gave out the most rewards. And as time's gone on, maybe I've stayed a little too long in that strategy. Probably should have moved to rares a little bit earlier, but I'm still happy I'm doing it now. Old favourite of the channel, Jonathan Vieira returns, only in limited this time, but he's been completely out of form. So the capped mode, completely out of form with an average of 56. So yeah, keep that in mind, how good he is. Benedict Pichler, I got on auction. He was one of my short series. Him and Kawasi that you can see here. They both play for Holstein, and I think they're good value for the cap mode striker position. You're using 39 points or 38 points for a guaranteed starter of a mid-table club. Maybe not guaranteed, that's probably the bad term to use, but an expected starter for a mid-table club would outscore 38 and 39. So, part of the cap mode strategy, and I'll show you my teams shortly. Upamecano, I had to get back. I miss that guy. He's SO5 royalty. I play a lot of under 23s. I play a lot of champion. He's perfect. John Lukumi, a monster of a player for £68. Now, if you guys at home wanted to pick up a cap mode player, find whoever you want. I would pick up a John Lukumi. He did have easy fixtures for these, and these are two games I actually targeted him for. But he did great. Getting to the point, I'm not even sure if you've seen these players. Gaia is just a monster. I felt like, since he's got free kicks, maybe not free kicks, since he's got corners at Valencia, even though they're performing badly, his scores are great. So I think he's a good value pickup. Ray stacks with my whole Bilbao club, and the other guys are cap mode specialists. So let's get into the teams. To understand the teams best, you have to understand my overall strategy is Champion Europe Limited, Champion Europe Rare, get the most expensive best players I can afford in this Champion Europe, compete on a budget in the rare Champion Europe, and hopefully if this one doesn't score well, it will hedge against this one and vice versa. So looking at this team, in my opinion, it's one of the best teams you can build in Champion Europe. Messi, Kimmich, I've even got some stacking in defence now with Upamecano and Sommer. Tony Cruz has been on fire again recently. We just need to make sure he scores. I've got depth, I've got Becker, I've got Trent. There's so many different pieces I can use. For this week, this is what I think is the best team. And yeah, I'm going to keep trying to run this team out. I love it. So hopefully it can pick up some rewards and hopefully get on my podium. Now let's talk the Cap 270. I was recently watching Professor Tekker's and Josh Forth's podcast, and they discussed how they thought, just from looking at the numbers on the screen of Sorare, 270 is far better to enter than 240, because everyone at the start of a new division just thinks, right, I'm going to play it safe, I'm going to go for the thresholds. And that makes sense to a degree, but when you crunch the numbers, it doesn't make sense at all. They were completely right. 270 is the best mode to play, providing you can reach rewards, but, at the end of the day, you want to look beyond just a threshold to win. Obviously, some people use it as their core goal. I think you want to be looking for cards. They'll be much more beneficial in the long term. You want to be competing at the highest end of these divisions. You want to be winning tier zeros, tier ones where possible. If you can't do that, maybe suggest going down a division. If you're at the lowest division, yeah, maybe you just want to grind for the thresholds until you can move up. But if you've been watching my series, and it's a great one that's got great responses, so I'd suggest you go watch it if you haven't already. It is learning AI, and what we're doing with this AI is building products on Sorare that can help us get better at Sorare, and one of them is a reward valuator. So essentially, if you don't know, I'll try and run through it really quickly. It just shows you all the different values paid out in each division, and it will tell you which one's more beneficial to use. It uses historical data, so we couldn't use it for the cap 240 and 270, but I took the valuations from last week, which should stay the same for next week, on average, and just compared the two divisions. If you adding in, so this is with a 10% win rate, right? So if 10% of the people that enter for the thresholds hit them, they'd be paying out a total of 47 ETH. And the cap mode only pays out 29 ETH, so you should play the 240. Until you consider the amount of players. If you have an equal chance of everyone else of winning the rewards, which is pretty much all you can consider when you have no idea who everyone else is playing, your rewards per person is like 1/3 worse off in 240 than it is in 270. So this is why I'm going to target 270. So Josh and Tekers, fair play for bringing that to my attention, and then I've crunched some numbers and I've guaranteed, in my opinion at least, it's definitely the best one to play. So my 270 team then is going to be an absolute team of killers. We've left 1 point in the bank. I think we could have left it perfect, but it didn't really work. Allison and Trent, both underperforming, both got an easy game against Wolves. Shemani's coming back from an injury, including that was a couple of World Cup games where he didn't do too great. Florian Wirtz just back from a long-term injury. He's got an 18 in there to bring his average down. And Vieira, we spoke about being underperforming. So I'm hoping for big things from these guys. Now, under 23 team looks like a bit of a killer. We don't know how Enzo will perform at Chelsea. Sad to see him go, but after such a good World Cup, he deserves it. Honestly, I was debating selling this whole team. I'm trying to focus on Champion Europe. Under 23 is a bit of a drag for me at the moment, to be honest. But I can't sell them. Jota, my favourite Celtic player at the moment. I got him for like £20 before he was even at Celtic. Vinicius Jr., you would have heard the story loads of times where I was just researching and then I was just watching Vinny Jr. when he was like not rated at all. And I was like, this guy's just a monster. 3 weeks later, he'd like tripled in price. Hakimi and Donnarumma, I've been running them for so long. Enzo Fernandez, I have his River Plate card from back in the day. I was watching, had a full River Plate stack of him and Julian Alvarez. It was the day of dreams because they always put up massive scores. They got spread out. I had to bring Enzo back, and now he's on like a 12% bonus, so I can't get rid of him. This is essentially a player of this is a team of players I just absolutely love. So we're going to hope it does well. So my cap 220 squad is very strong. I have 2 points in the bank. I've used Trapp as a common goalkeeper, which is great for you guys on a budget. Frimpong, I think, all good scores. Szymanski, Milan Skriniar. It's all good. The problem is I went out and bought Mikel Oyarzabal. I'm so sorry, Mr. Oyarzabal. I cannot say your name. But I went and bought him for about £70. And then I'm thinking, you're spending £70 on a cap 220 mode on a team you don't really care about. So I think I'm probably going to try and sell the whole team. Skriniar's staying now. The transfer window's closed. He's going to PSG at the end of June. So I did pick up one just to cover my rare one because I was like, I still think he's a great value buy. Now it's not so much of a great value buy. It's just an average buy. He's just in line with market where he should be. So I might get rid of him. Szymanski's just, that gold card I can't really get rid of. Frimpong's ex-Celtic. So maybe sell these 3 cards and just bin off the team. It'll be a shame to lose 2 good scores, but you can focus on the divisions you're actually focusing on because I haven't even got a rare team out yet, or not that I've shown you, and that is where I'm focusing now. I put so much more thought and time into my rare teams. Champ Europe team then. I have a lot of hope for this team. Bilbao have an easy game against Cadiz. That could be a great one. Dybala and Pellegrini together against Empoli. I've just been watching them. They've been so good together, especially Dybala. I think he's on set pieces now. If you can get a Dybala, I would suggest you can. I know he's premium, but, a 94, a 95, the guy can play. Gaia, he is fantastic. I just think away to Girona could be a really tricky fixture. And if you've realised I've got 2 ETH in the bank, it's because I went a bit crazy. I tried to pick up a Kevin De Bruyne last night for 2 ETH. Why? He's one of the best scorers on the game. He plays in Champion Europe. He's undervalued compared to other players. Like Neymar was 3 ETH, Kimmich is about 5. I was like, De Bruyne should be more between their prices than under them. It's a little bit of risk of rotation of Pep Guardiola, of course, the bold fraud. But the key here is essentially I'm going to the game on Sunday. Spurs versus Man City. I got invited by Sorare. I'm so buzzing for it. And I thought, what better way than to get a Kevin De Bruyne in a team that I think is going to absolutely pop off. Unfortunately, it got outbid. It got outbid more than I was willing to pay. It was like 2.04. So it was very close, but I was strict with my limits. 2 ETH is a huge amount of money regardless. So to do it for 1 game week, and then you're not even sure if he's going to play because he was benched against Spurs last time. I might try and put a sneaky offer in for this one, like a little combination deal, but you would never give it up at a price I'm happy with. So yeah, we're kind of stuck for now, but I did go a little crazy. I do want to replace this. I've been trying so hard to get a super rare. I've been sending offers pretty much all day just to try and pick up like a Gaia super rare, a Hoffman super rare I'd absolutely love. Wijnaldum from before, sending, Discords. I'm trying to get super rare Ure. It's just no one's accepting. The super rare market for Champion Europe is so hard to get into, especially on a game week where you're trying to look for someone that's going to score well. If you don't understand why, it's because in this reward analysis I've done, there was a lot better rewards per person in the Champion Europe division, and even better than that was Champion Europe Rare Pro. So I'm thinking, I've already got a good Champion Europe side. If I could just add a super rare or two, I can really start pushing my probabilities higher of how much I should be kind of expected to win. It increases my chances. Not that many people play the division. But I just can't find one at a fair price. Oh, it is driving me nuts. I was in for a James Ward-Prowse super rare at one point. I was willing to pay 1.2 ETH because really I don't want to spend 2 ETH. That was just because it's a special event and I could sell him at the end of it essentially. But this super rare ended up going for 1.4. I was like, for James Ward-Prowse, he's about to get relegated, and when he gets relegated, he'll get traded. I mean, he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but you can't guarantee any of the scores. So I was surprised he went for 1.4. Ure, no one will sell to me. I think it's a great one. Gaia, again, it's all right, but he's got not the best fixture this weekend. I really want someone to if I'm going to hit the ground run, I'm going to hit the ground running with this like monster team this first week. So we'll see what I'll do, and I have no idea. Any suggestions, super rare Champion Europe players in the comments, please let me know. I spoke about Cap 240 and why it wasn't actually that beneficial to players because so many people are playing it, so you shouldn't put your best teams out. I've just put a NAF team in, hopefully hits a threshold, doubt it'll win a reward. Of course, I've got all of my drafts as well. I was 57th in the French League draft after week 1, and I was at the hospital, and just before the deadline closed, Neymar getting injured was out. And unfortunately, I didn't have time to fix my team, so I just had to stick with that. So I'm out of that one. Bundesliga, La Liga, Premier League, Serie A, I'll probably all do like reasonable in, nothing special. We'll see how it goes, I guess. Premier League's just about to start, but it's like, yeah, there's so many different people playing it. You really need to stand out. You really need to get off to a good start. That's why I was keen on the French League draft, and that's already dead. So I am taking them seriously, but I also don't want to put too much time into it where they take away from the real teams. I've got one spare rare goalkeeper to use then, so the decision is between the thresholds of 240 or the cap 270. I think I'm going to try 270. I can miss out on thresholds for 1 week, but I don't know who I'm going to play because the problem is this is a great team I could put out. Wijnaldum won't play, or he won't won't start, so he shouldn't be playing here. It's all up in the air. I don't really know. This has been a really long episode. Please let me know if you like this. I don't really do long form content too often. I like to be straight to the point, but a lot of you guys do request it. So drop a comment if you prefer the long, updates. It's been 3 weeks since we spoke. I'm not rushing through everything. I'm trying to go through it in detail. Let me know what you think of my short series because I've been doing those. I've been keeping up to date with how my, rewards have been doing each game week. I've been saying a couple of my teams that I think are really good. And yeah, all the best to you. Yeah, it happened.
No more half measures, Walter.
Thanks for watching, and yeah, if you see me at the Spurs Man City game, let me know. All the best. Bye.